Welcome. My name is Jennifer Lawrence. I'm the Registrar and CEO of the College of Dental Hygienists. Thank you for joining us this morning on an interesting weather day. I got a picture from my hubby back in Duncan, and it's snowing there too. So I think Mother Nature needs to go on a vacation to Mexico or something and bring us back the sunshine. Before I get too far in, I'd like to recognize that we're meeting today on the unceded territory of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh nations, and we thank them for the privilege of having this meeting today. Before we get into the presentation, it is my great pleasure to have the CDHBC Board Chair here, David McPherson, and I'm going to welcome him to the stage to say a few words on behalf of the board.
Good morning, everybody. It's great to see all those smiling faces out there. Okay. So I just want to start and say on behalf of the board of the College of Dental Hygienists of BC, welcome to the 2019 Pacific Dental Conference Forum. So as Jennifer said, I'm David McPherson. I'm the chair of the board and a public representative. This is my first opportunity to attend the conference. I'm really pretty overwhelmed. It's quite an event that you've got organized here. I'm very pleased to be here, and it'd be great to get to know some of you and meet some of you after our presentation and hopefully at the booth as well. So please come on up and say hello. In a few minutes, Jennifer Lawrence is going to come back up and be providing an overview of current issues that are facing dental hygiene regulation. And I'm sure you're just going to have rapt attention to hear all about that. But there's some interesting things going on in the profession for sure, and in regulation in general. But before that, I'd just like to take an opportunity to give you the board's perspective, because remember, I'm representing the board here, on health regulation in BC. And if you don't mind, I'm just going to give you a little background on who I am. I've had the privilege of serving on the board since 2016. August 2016, I think, is when I started. And this is my second year as a board chair. And I think I might be one of the first public representatives to chair a regulatory college. So I feel very proud and privileged to have that role. And just so you know, I had previously served on another regulatory college for 9 years. So I'm sort of a regulatory junkie, policy nerd, whatever. And I enjoy this kind of work. I'm a social worker by profession. Spent most of my career in social and health services with the provincial government, and then for 5 years as a consultant. So serving the public and protecting the public interest has always been a significant, a very important part of my career. And I'm really proud to continue the public protection focus with the college. And as I said, I really enjoy being a part of that college. So you may know that in BC there are 26 healthcare professions regulated by 23 colleges, including, of course, dental hygiene. And all are governed under the Health Professions Act, known as the HPA. You might hear that term. And when I started on this board, that's one of the first things they gave me is a glossary of acronyms. There was about 2 pages of them. We love our acronyms. So HPA is the first one I learned. So public protection mandate is also set out in the HPA, so it's a very important piece of legislation. In our role as a board, from a strategic and governance perspective, we are required to have the public's interest in mind in our decision-making flowing from the Act. And as that old Ford ad said, that's job one for us. That's really an important part of our job. So what does the college's public interest mandate mean to you as registrants? And I think maybe some registrants might not quite be clear on that. Well, I think the mandate is an important benefit to the profession in the eyes of the public, because the services you provide must meet the standards and guidelines directly established by your peers within the college. The public can have confidence in how you deliver care to your clients as a result of that. The public puts their trust in health professionals, and it is up to each of you as individual healthcare providers to maintain that trust through ongoing enhancement of skills, knowledge, and demonstration of professionalism throughout your career. But beyond that, each regulated health profession also has a duty to the public that encompasses all facets of professional conduct, including self-awareness and accountability for one's actions. So having the public's trust and confidence is a precious thing, and something that the board and the college take very seriously. As that old saying goes, trust takes years to build, seconds to break, and forever to repair. And that's why the college's mission statement and strategic plan unveiled here last year clearly outlines the various ways the college is focused on upholding that public trust. So as a board, we will continue to work tirelessly to ensure the college upholds the public interest mandate, and that the college can continue to support you as registrants so that dental hygiene can continue to have the public's trust and confidence. Anyways, thank you. That's all I have to say this morning. I thank you very much. I appreciate you coming out, and I'm going to turn it back over to Jennifer.
Okay, thank you so much, David. It's fantastic that we have our board chair here with us, especially that our board chair is a public representative. And many of the things that he touched on in his opening remarks, I'm going to delve even a little bit deeper into the presentation. But before I get started, I wanted to take the opportunity to introduce a few people that are here today. So I'm going to go through the staff, and they really hate this part, but they're going to do it anyways. So first, Milena Angelova is our Quality Assurance Coordinator. Robin Adams is our strategic manager. Alyssa Moberg is one of our dental hygiene advisors, as is Brett Hastings. Brett has fans. Jackie Geider is our senior dental hygiene advisor, and probably also has a lot of fans. Rebecca Chisholm is our director of policy and practice, and Heather Bigger is our deputy registrar. So we are well supported. We have a fantastic team at the office. For those of you who may not know, the office just moved. So we do have a new location in Victoria down on Harbour Road. For those who are familiar with Victoria, it's right by the new Johnson Street Bridge. So if you're ever in Victoria, please come by and say hello. We do love visitors. And then I also want to acknowledge Tammy Gulovich, the chair of the BCDHA board, is with us today. So one thing I also want to mention is the session is being recorded. That will be put together and then posted on our YouTube channel. So if you have colleagues who weren't able to make it this morning, I know there's competing sessions and it's always tough to choose at PDC, but they will have the opportunity to view it later, and if they participate in some reflective exercises, can claim it for continuing competency credits as well. And then I also want to do a full disclosure. Today I'm trying something new. At one point in the presentation, I am going to switch out of my PowerPoint to the internet and try to show you something on the internet. I beg you to bear with me. I have fingers and toes crossed that this technology will happen seamlessly and easily, and I'm not going to get booted off the Wi-Fi. But we'll see how it goes, and I'll just ask for your patience at that juncture. So what actually are we going to talk about today? It may be a repeat for many of you, but I do think it's always important to start every presentation reviewing our mandate, mission, and goals, and sort of what David alluded to, what is our job here in BC in terms of regulating the profession of dental hygiene. So we are going to go through that. I will not spend as much time as I have maybe in years past, but I will spend some time on that just to set the stage. And then I'm going to talk about the changing regulatory landscape in BC. Like David, I am also a regulatory and policy nerd. It's probably going to be way more exciting to me, but I hope it's interesting for you as well, because really what's at play right now in the regulatory world, especially the health regulatory world in BC, is going to really explain, set the foundation, set the stage for probably some changes you're going to see in the very near future. And then I'm going to update you on our 3 pillars: registration, quality assurance, and inquiry. It's in that quality assurance that I'm going to give you a sneak peek of our new online learning plan software, and that's when I'm going to attempt to go to the internet to show you. And then I'm going to end with speaking a little bit more about cultural safety. So as I said, it's always good to remind ourselves, what is the college mandate? It is not something that the college has invented. It's actually in the statute. It's in the Act. And it is the duty of a college at all times to serve and protect the public and to exercise its powers and discharge its responsibilities under all enactments in the public interest. And so that looks simple, right? But what does the public interest actually mean? Well, in this context, it really is our job to ensure that we have bylaws, policies, programs in place that prevents the public from harm, from incompetent, impaired, or unethical practice. That's really, really, really narrowly defined. Often we get a lot of questions at the college, and a lot of people feel that certain other things are in the public interest. And so you've probably seen my lame graphic before. It hasn't gotten any better, I apologize. I really should get some help with that. But that big purple box, that's the public interest. There's lots of things that you could argue is in the public interest. But our role in that public interest is very narrowly defined. It's that small lavender or light purple box. So what is in that big purple box that we don't really spend a lot of time on and really ought not to? Well, advocacy is number one. And this is a bit of a tricky one because advocacy can mean a lot of things and a lot of different things to different people. But in this context, it's not our job to necessarily promote the profession or advocate necessarily for change that might benefit the profession. Clearly, you'll see as we get through, our mission statement is about protecting the public through regulatory excellence. So I still feel it is our job to work towards regulatory excellence, to find new ways, better ways to regulate more effectively, to make sure we have the right touch of regulation. So it doesn't mean a light touch, but it means that we're touching enough for the right situation. And it's a really interesting place to be, because certainly at the end of our day, our job is public protection, but we're also human, and we deal with humans, and we deal with real life. And so it's that intersection where real life happens and regulation needs to occur that we have to continually to improve. Like I said, the promotion of the profession. So you won't see an ad from the college on TV saying, go see your dental hygienist, they're fantastic. Of course we believe it, but that is not our job. That is more the role of the association. Employment matters. This is probably one of the number one things we get called at the office that we actually can't help with. People are having complicated employment issues, pay issues, hour issues, scheduling issues. And of course, as anything in life, there's always areas of gray. So sometimes employment matters may cross over into client care. If the scheduling is too tight and the registrant is not able to carry out the practice standards, say document appropriately or do a proper health history because they aren't being allowed the time in the office and there's an office policy that's counterproductive to good client care, then obviously we would probably have a role in that. Issues around pay and actually working hours, not our role. So you can see it is a little bit complex. And then at the end of the day, protecting individual dental hygienists. It's not our job to protect individual dental hygienists. As you have probably heard me say before, we will always work with registrants as long as they're willing to work with us because our goal is to actually make sure our registrants are practicing safely. And we do believe at the college, and you'll find this as we get into the presentation, that there's less benefit at punishing. Sometimes it's needed, sometimes, especially when the registrant isn't willing to work with us, but there's more benefit in remediation and supporting that remediation. But at some point, there has to be an intersection of not doing that. But that's not protecting, that's supporting, and they're different. And so I'm actually going to talk today about two inquiry cases that are published. I am going to be talking about the names of the dental hygienists. It's uncomfortable for me, but it is an essential part of my job because we can't, when serious matters occur, we can't just sweep it under the rug and pretend it didn't exist. That's not our job. How do we do this? Well, there's the light purple box. So what is in that light purple box? Well, you're going to hear a lot about three main pillars. I talked about it last year, and really this is how I kind of frame most of my presentations these days. So registration. We set the qualifications to become a dental hygienist. You have to apply. You have to meet certain other standards before you are permitted to enter the profession. We need to ensure that when you come in, you have the right education, the right background, the good character to be a member of the profession. Then, once you become a registrant, we have a quality assurance program. So throughout your career, we're touching in with you to make sure that your practice is still current, competent, safe, and ethical. And then should something occur, it is our role to investigate and potentially discipline when something does go awry. And it's an important role. It's not a fun role. It's not a positive role, but it is an essential role to do. All these objects are set out in the Act. As David said, it is the HPA. We live and breathe by the HPA. We have 8 practice standards and 12 code of ethics statements that underpin these 3 pillars and really are the foundations. So who does this work? Well, David's with us today. We do have a board of 9. 6 are elected registrants, and 3 are public members. So David is one of our public members, and then we have 2 others, including Julie Ackroyd, who is actually our vice chair. So both our chair and vice chair are public members, which I think speaks loudly to the commitment of the board to ensure that the public voice is at the center of all discussions. I always want to underline for you the elected members. Yes, at the moment you are electing them from specific regions around the province. It is not like our parliamentary system whereby because you elected them, they're your person and you're their constituents and they answer to you. It is simply a method of selection to get registrants to the board. Once they become on the board, they are there to make decisions in the public interest, and they do not represent registrants broadly or specifically from the area. They certainly can bring perspective of what it's like to be a registrant in Prince George or Cranbrook or Vancouver or Victoria, but they're not there to represent those registrants. We do also have committees that mirror the 3 pillars, and they have mandated powers through the HPA. So inquiries, complaints happen at inquiry committee. It doesn't go to the board. Quality assurance cases stay at quality assurance. Registration is the same. And then also myself, I do actually have specific powers outlined in the Act, what I can and cannot do. Oftentimes I get phone calls, and I'm currently actually have one registrant who is desperate to reinstate. And, well, can't you just accept my payment and push it through for me? No, I can't. I actually am governed by the Act and by our bylaws. And I actually kind of like my job. I really enjoy it. I've been here almost 12 years. And while I appreciate all registrants, I'm not willing to lose my job by bending the rules for any one registrant. So all that being said, and you've heard me talk, well, we're not really here for you. And we're here for the public. And yeah, you elect, but really you don't. And so what's in it for you guys, right? Well, it is that use of restricted title. Only registrants with the college can call themselves dental hygienists. Even dental hygiene students cannot call themselves dental hygienists. They have to be clear that they are still students. And it's really important. It may not seem so because in our culture in Canada, we've kind of taken for granted when people tell you they're a dental hygienist, they are one. That's not a falsehood, that they're not trying to make it up. But in other parts of the world, that's not so. And so when you tell someone you're a dental hygienist, immediately that garners trust with them. Immediately, you actually haven't had to work to have trust. Now, the profession and the college has built that trust over many, many years, but it just automatically comes along with it. Also, restricted activities. So only the most qualified people can do the most high-risk activities. So again, a nurse can't debride, for example. So it's the right professional to provide the right care. And again, that's a bit unique in the world. And again, the privilege of being a profession instead of an occupation. Actually, most of our healthcare workers actually are in occupations and are actually unregulated. I know I said that last year, and I know that might be surprising to some. But many of the technology-based occupations actually aren't regulated. And then also having members be part of the perspectives and expertise in the governance of the profession. So as I said, you do have 6 elected people on the board that are registrants. We have registrants on all the committees. We obviously have registrants on staff, and they're able to provide the expertise and the perspective that is so important. I'm going to get into a little later in the presentation where our bylaws are at and our regulations are at that we talked about many years ago. But we're making some progress on that, and we're having some dialogue with the Ministry of Health. And they are asking us questions, and they're legitimate questions. And I can tell you it's really important that we actually do have dental hygienists on staff and obviously on the board and committees to be able to actually answer those questions that will actually make the regulation not better for dental hygienists necessarily, but actually better and more effective for the public. So we can regulate better so the public can receive that kind of care, and that regulations aren't unduly restrictive or not reflective of actually good client care. So this was unveiled last year. We adopted a new mission statement last year, and it is fulfilling our duty to protect the public through regulatory excellence. And it's a really quick and easy thing to rolls off the tongue nicely. It really makes, sounds simple, but it is something we strive for. And it may not feel to you maybe that things are changing that rapidly, but we're always working at the college about how do we do this better? How do we be more effective? What's better for the public? What's actually going to assist registrants in delivering better care to the public. So for example, I will be showing you the new OLP software. And so that's actually going to be what on the surface may seem a direct benefit to you as registrants, but really it's designed to actually support your learning better, so then therefore the public is protected. We also unveiled the value statements last year. These aren't all of a sudden new, like all of a sudden we're going to be ethical. Please don't take it that way. We just decided to put them in writing. I think the college has upheld these statements for many, 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 many years. But obviously we're going to be ethical in our conduct, just like we expect our registrants to be. We are going to demonstrate leadership through proactive and visionary regulatory practices. Like I said, we're always pushing ourselves to do better. My staff know, and sometimes they cringe when, I ask, well, why do we do it that way? Well, because we kind of always have it. We've always done it that way. And I say, oh, you know me. That's never a good reason. I'm always looking to do it better. Collaboration. So we can foster collaborative relationships with all stakeholders. So whether that's our registrants, whether that's other regulatory bodies, whether that's for the provincial government, whether that's national bodies, we always are looking at collaborating and sharing best practices. We have a lot to share and give, but we know others have a lot to share and give back to us. And ultimately, transparency. We really strive to be as transparent as we possibly can. Sometimes it's a bit crunchy and it's not always the easiest thing to do, but where we can, we are very transparent and open about our work. We do have 4 strategic goals for the coming year ahead. Oversee the practice of the profession to enhance competency for the welfare of the public. That's not anything surprising and pretty nuts and bolts of what we do, and this is sort of where our 3 pillars will lie, and our strategic plan is on our website. I'd encourage you to have a look at it. There's a number of objectives under each of these goals of actually how we're going to do this work. Promote awareness of the college mandate initiative amongst registrants and the public. So again, we're trying to enhance our communications for both yourselves and the public. We do have a Facebook page now, so if you do not like us and follow us on Facebook, please do so. I don't know how many in this room got the email bulletin that came out on Tuesday. It appears that Google is now also thwarting our email efforts because they have changed a number of security settings through their Gmail program, which unfortunately is now tagging our emails as spam. So it used to just be Hotmail we were having challenges with, and now apparently Gmail is lumped into that bucket. So we're working with our IT provider to try to find a workaround. But again, if you're not getting emails from the college, first please check your junk folder. And if it's not there, please contact the college or even log into your profile and make sure we've got a correct email address. We send emails about once a month, obviously more often during renewal and things like that. So if you're not getting them, please make sure that we figure out how to get them to you because we will not spam you. We will not send you anything you don't need to know for your practice. So whether it's the renewal reminder, whether it's an email about a new interpretation guideline or a change to interpretation guideline, whether bylaws have been posted, things like that, it's really important you're getting our emails because I think the only thing we actually now send by mail is when you're a brand new registrant, we will send you a nice certificate with the gold seal. Now everything else you can either access through your online profile through the college website, or you'll get via email. So even your registration card is now downloadable from your profile. We will not be emailing you or mailing you those anymore. Demonstrate the commitment of the college to cultural safety and humility. We are very committed to this. We are continuing to work through this. It's not an easy topic. It's not a quick topic. We are continuing to do so. And then promote interprofessional collaboration with stakeholders. Just like we want our registrants to be collaborating interprofessionally, we also want to walk the walk and not just talk the talk. So I'm going to first pause and grab a little bit of water, and then I'm going to get into the changing regulatory landscape in BC. This has been at play for a little while now, but really I think came to a head, funnily enough, this time last year at Pacific Dental Conference, and you'll see why shortly. And for those of you who really follow the news, you might have noticed, interestingly, all of a sudden, colleges and regulatory bodies seem to be popping up in the news a little bit more. Like I said, I've been registrar for almost 12 years now, and I can tell you probably in the first 8, 9 years, I had probably one recollection of a regulatory body really being in the news. I think I was called once by some random reporter. In the last 2 to 3 years, that has changed. And I don't know if there's one particular reporter with the CBC who has a keen interest in us. But I also think the public's expectations around what kind of care they get from their professionals and what kind of activities the regulatory bodies are engaged in has changed and has heightened quite considerably. And in the age of Google your symptoms and Dr. Google will tell you what your symptoms are, what your disease is, and you can self-diagnose, we've lost a little bit of that traction around just trusting our experts, trusting our regulatory professionals. I need to write down the term that Harry used, Harry Caton, who I'll speak about in a little bit. We've gone away from expert to memert, or basically the individual themselves feels they're more of an expert than the expert. And in fact, the trust of the expert has almost flipped in that, oh, you're an expert, I don't trust you now. So it's something to be mindful of. So here's some recent news articles over the last year that really have taken off, and many of you may have seen them. So Vice Chair of Chiropractors College among practitioners who have been directed by province to take down anti-vaccine Facebook posts. Interestingly enough, that headline was from almost a year ago. Just recently on CTV, the health minister was being interviewed around the measles outbreak here in Vancouver and actually pointed to the fact that there are still regulated health professionals advertising anti-vaccine posts on their Facebook, on their website, and that he is completely appalled and that's unacceptable and the colleges need to do more. Throwing the gauntlet down. Chiropractor with a history of sexual assaulting patients suspended from practice again. So what do you think the public thinks when they hear about that? Suspended from practice again? How did they go back in the first place? And I am not picking on the chiropractors because these are also little sound bites. I can tell you probably the backstory to that particular headline, the actual case behind it, is probably far more complex than we can understand. And one of the challenges is the Act allows us to do certain things, but it also stops us from doing things. Case law is actually very interesting, and I think we're starting to see it change, but I can tell you from experience, it is almost impossible, no matter what a registrant has done, to get them out of the profession forever. Because there's still an underlying thought that, well, maybe after some time has passed, maybe they've changed. Or, you know what, we can't totally remove their ability to earn a living, so maybe we can just put safeguards or conditions. And in some cases, that may work. And this is where that human intersection with regulatory roles really hits together. Because maybe somebody can change. Maybe there's a back history of why, I'm not making excuses for sexual assaulting, but whatever it is, there's a back history, and maybe if some alterations and whatever, it can change. But then you have the repeat offenders, and now it makes it look like the college isn't being effective or doing its job. BC naturopaths under investigation for offering treatment claiming to eliminate autism. So again, it's not even about, did you have a license? Are you practicing competently to your standards? Now we're getting into the area of advertising and social media and what each of your registrants is saying on those platforms. And then lastly, and I think this is probably the most famous one, BC naturopath treats boy with rabid dog saliva. That story unfortunately ran for a very long time. It was very unfortunate. And again, at the college, and I don't want to make it sound like I'm complaining, we have a very serious role to play and we need to be effective. There's 4,000 dental hygienists in the province. We are a complaints-based exercise. Yes, we have the quality assurance program. Yes, we have some proactive things, but it is not possible, given our current resources, to monitor every single registrant and what every single registrant is promising or not promising or trying to do. There's absolutely improvements here that we all can make. And so I don't want to pick on naturopaths or chiropractors. They were the unfortunate ones to get the media attention. Doesn't mean that we're doing it perfectly. We all have lessons to learn about how we can be more proactive and how we can have policies and standards in place to address these sort of things. But it is an interesting shift in the last few years at sort of the attention and B, the expectations. So there was those articles. And then last year, a year ago tomorrow, the Minister of Health sent out a press release saying the board appoints to help Dental College put public first. And so in that release, the health minister appointed 5 additional public members to the College of Dental Surgeons board, who include former deputy minister and health authority CEOs. So previously their board, like ours, was sort of a 2/3, 1/3 split. So 2/3 registrants and 1/3 public. This change shifted that and actually made it 50-50. So at that time, the board was made up of 22 members, which, as an aside, that's a huge board. Governance is moving away from these bigger boards, but I think this was more of a means to an end. 10 elected dentists, 2 elected CDAs, and 10 public members. So it was a 50-50 split with plus the 2 CDAs. In that same press release, the minister ordered a review of the college by Chief Executive of the UK's Professional Standards Authority, Harry Caton. I know you're not regulatory nerds like I am, but Harry Caton is the guy in regulation in the world. He is a leading expert and is very passionate, very well-spoken, very learned in the areas of regulation. So 2 quotes from that press release. In a further move to assist the college in serving British Columbians, Dix took the rare and significant step of moving forward with a review into the administrative and operational practices of the college, including the board of CDSBC. The review, which is in response to a series of unrelated complaints made against the college, will generate learnings that the CDSBC and professional colleges throughout BC's health system will be able to apply as best practices. So the reason I'm speaking about this is not to be critical of CDSBC, actually far from it. We all struggle with many of these similar things. But look what it says after CDSBC in that second quote, and professional colleges throughout BC's health system. Harry's report will not only impact CDSBC, it will impact all of us. So the terms of the review, so what are the things that Harry was asked to look at by the minister? So ensuring the members of the board and committees discharge their duty to act in the public interest. So really basic. But again, the health minister is taking a really critical eye to the conduct of our boards. Ensuring there are mutual respectful relationships between board members and professional staff of the college. What is that intersection? How is that working? Because you have a board and you have staff. How do those things work together? Ensuring senior staff of the college treat each other and all staff with respect and professionalism. So again, is it team? Is it collaborative? Or are there other factors at play? Ensuring the college has appropriate and clear conflict resolution policies. So that's the big broad CDSBC, what they're going to look at. Those are pretty broad statements. And it was pretty clear that basically Harry had free range to interview. I was interviewed by Harry myself, and I know he interviewed many people. But then also specifically about handling complaints. And I can tell you, handling of complaints is probably the toughest part of my job. It's the toughest work that the college does, because no 2 complaints are the same, and they're never simple, ever. I can promise you they're never simple. So first, he's going to look at the college bylaws, standards, practices, and procedures are in accordance with the Act and effectively protect public safety and the public interest. So those foundational aspects that I was talking about that support our pillars, that support our work, have we designed them in a way that is actually in the public interest? Or have they been designed in a way to favor the profession? And I can tell you that's not as easy to answer, because the 2 things aren't always easy to separate out. Are they carried out in a timely and effective manner? This is another tough one. I can tell you, we would like nothing better at the college to be efficient in our complaints. We don't want them sitting around on our agenda any more than probably the registrant and the complainant do. However, complaints are usually not simple and straightforward. They're complicated. Oftentimes, legal counsels get involved. As much as I love my lawyers, and I genuinely say that, they don't usually expedite things. Are the college bylaws, guidelines, standards of practice, policies established by the board in the public interest and ensure public safety? I put that in there twice. I wonder why I did that. Anyways, college has an effective program to monitor and enforce the same. So are we actually reviewing these things to make sure we're actually doing it correctly? because times are changing so fast. So I can tell you, and I know the staff are, get a little bit squirmy, but I said, when's the last time we really reviewed those practice standards? That we really reviewed the code of ethics? I think it's time. The college practices regarding public notification are consistent with the Act and show appropriate transparency. Again, this is challenging. The Act requires us to be transparent, but then we have freedom of information and privacy that also overlay around a registrant's right to privacy, a complainant's right to privacy, and then, to be totally honest, the Act says you should publish everything that is a serious matter. But they don't define what a serious matter is. So now we have 23 colleges, all probably taking a slightly different view on what a serious matter is. Now we do have the BC Health regulators. You've probably heard me speak about them before, and they've done some great work around a public notification framework to provide a better guide for all colleges to follow so that we can be as consistent as possible. But again, even within our own college, you'll see there's, when I get through the records of decision and inquiry, there's two very similar cases, but slightly different outcomes because it's that complex. So what is he going to do? So obviously he's going to be recommending respective changes to the Act and regulations, what he considers necessary in order to enhance the effective administration of an operation of a college to assist the college in carrying out its duties and objects of the college under Section 16 of the Act. So we're not now talking about just CDSBC. Harry is going to recommend changes to allow all colleges, all health colleges under the Act to do our job better. He's going to make recommendations around the ability of a board to utilize best practice for governance of regulated professionals. Because there's more than just one college, the bylaws that even support the board and even the processes by which you elect the board members. For example, CDSBC still does direct elect their president of their board. So there's no opportunity at CDSBC for their board president or chair to be a public member like there is at our college. And other colleges have a different structure yet again. So how can we make that more consistent and more effective? The transparency and accountability of a college. I'm actually really looking forward to Harry's recommendations on this because I don't think the current Act actually really helps us do this well, and we want to do this well. Actually, I actually would say that my colleagues and I are desperate to be able to do this well and to do this better. But you might need to be prepared that, again, registrants' rights actually to privacy probably will be declined, and that the minister will probably say the need of the public to know outweighs the need of a registrant's privacy, unless there's exceptional circumstances to weigh that out. And again, the public interest and the public safety generally. So while yes, this is a review of CDSBC, it is actually a review of us all. This report was due to the minister on December 31st. I believe it was delivered. It has not been released yet. I was hoping, actually, it would be released, so I'd actually have a little bit more to share with you today. I anticipate it will be released in the near future. I can assure you that there will be communication coming from us once it is released to ensure that you are aware of its contents. Are changes going to happen overnight? Probably not. But I think it will be the impetus for probably some significant changes, so please stay tuned. So kind of spilling over this, what is actually stuff that's already happening? Well, increasing the number of public members to establish a 50-50 split. We don't have that at our college just yet. We certainly would welcome it. But it also requires the Minister of Health to make those appointments. We don't make them, the minister does. And so we're not quite in a position to do that yet, but it's certainly a number of other colleges, not just CDSBC, has a 50-50 split. Critical eye towards that election method and establishing needs-based boards, and I'm going to speak about that in a little bit. Combining colleges, reducing the number of colleges, I'm going to speak about that. Loss of self-regulation. We've had it here in BC. The teachers, the realtors, they've lost self-regulation. I know the Denturus in Ontario lost it. They've gotten it back. But the government is definitely changing its perspective on self-regulation. So speaking of combining colleges, you may be aware that this past September, the 3 nursing colleges in BC amalgamated into one. So the College of Registered Nurses, the College of Psychiatric Nurses, and the Licensed Practical Nurses. Those 3 colleges are now the BC College of Nursing Professionals, or BCCNP. So you should add that to your list, David, of acronyms. That's a new one. They have 8 elected board members, 2 from each nursing discipline, and 8 public members. Okay, so they have 2 RNs, 2 nurse practitioners, 2 psych nurses, and 2 LPNs. So not one discipline has some sort of majority. It's not based on, you know what, there's 10,000 RNs and only 1,000 psych nurses, so the RNs get way more than the psych nurses. That is not meant, because that would actually mean it's a representative position. It's not. All those positions are there to act in the public, so you don't need it to be a proportional representation. You just need equal perspective around the table. And then, again, 50-50 split, so 8 public members. Interestingly enough, as well, all registrants vote for all positions. So all registrants of BCCNP vote for the 2 LPN spots, or the 2 RN spots. So it's not like the RNs just vote for the RNs. Because it ought actually not to be a popularity contest. It ought to actually be based on needs and competencies. So the BCCNP actually has a robust set of bylaws. They actually have a nominations committee and a governance committee that actually determines what is needed on the board, what kind of competencies, what kind of expertise, what kind of knowledge is needed on the board. So we have a diverse board with people that have a wide variety of expertise and knowledge, so that we get the type of people and the type of knowledge around that board table to make effective decisions. And so they actually will publish those needs, what they've determined the needs are. They will assess and recruit people to be elected based on those needs. Those people will have to answer a questionnaire. It will be published. And the registrants are meant to actually be thoughtful and be like, okay, well, if the board has decided, or the college has decided these are the needs, how do these various candidates meet the needs? So therefore, it actually doesn't matter whether you're an RN voting for an LPN or a psych nurse voting for a nurse practitioner, because you should be focused on the needs and the competencies, not just about getting your buddy on the board. So our board has actually endeavored into this process as well, following the lead of BCCNP, and is doing work to explore these options for the College of Dental Hygienists. We're not there yet, but again, please stay tuned. There may be some changes happening in the future, and bylaws to be posted for comment that you'll want to be aware of. But again, instead of having regional elections, because I will be honest that despite my talks and despite our language, there still is an expectation that, hey, I voted for you, you represent me. So that method sets up some unrealistic expectations. So the board is considering having sort of 6 at-large elected positions. So no longer regional, it'll be 6 at-large, and everyone will vote for everyone. But like I was talking about the nurses, it will be focused on needs and competencies. So it's not to say we don't want the perspective of someone who works remotely or works in the north or works on the island. That might be one of the needs and competencies that we've actually identified. And when you receive the ballot and you go through the various people and you compare them to the list of needs or competencies and you feel it's important that we fulfill those, I still feel we have a really great registrant base who is smart and intelligent and is ethical and will say, yeah, we're not just going to flood the board with people from Vancouver, because that's not going to be very effective. So these are explorations that are happening, and I just wanted to highlight them and stay tuned to see where that goes. Also, you heard me speak about this increased expectation on the part of the public and probably the part of the minister about websites and Facebook. So I'm a bit daunted by this, to be honest, because there is this expectation now that we got to be keeping tabs on what's getting published on people's Facebook and websites. So we are going to be undertaking a review of registrants' websites. Yikes. But it's important, and I want to say collaboration is the focus. This is not happening at inquiry. This is not happening at quality assurance. This is happening at a staff level, because I truly believe our registrants, I don't think we're going to find much. I'm very optimistic we're not going to find much. And when we do, I'm ever the optimist. I would like to believe it comes from a place of misunderstanding or not quite sure that, maybe the right intent was there, but perhaps maybe the wrong execution. And so we will be collaborating, and you can expect to receive suggestions and comments. This is not, like I said, it's not an inquiry, it's not an investigation, it's not meant to do any of that other than to ensure that what's on your websites is not misleading, doesn't contravene any of our bylaws. So we do, if you do have a website, if you do or have a dental hygiene practice or a dental hygiene practitioner, and you have a website or a Facebook page, you may want to refresh your memory around our marketing bylaws. You want to make sure that any statements that are being made on the website are evidence-based and comply with our scope of practice, standard practice, scope of ethics, and interpretation guidelines. And if you have any questions or you're unsure, feel free to shoot us an email or give us a call saying, you know what, I thought this was fine, but then Jen said something at PDC, and then it got me thinking, and now I'm not quite sure. What do you think about this statement? We'd be happy to support you in that. Okay, so changing gears. Now, probably before I move on to this, I actually want to pause and see if there's any questions about anything that I've covered thus far around anything. No? Okay. I'll keep rambling. I don't want to talk at you the whole time. Feel free to ask questions, I promise. I won't bite. So, yes, this proposal has, well, you can stay and then I'll just repeat your question for the audience. How's that?
So I just wanted you to clarify that. Are you monitoring independent practitioners' professional websites or Facebook pages of individual dental hygienists? I see that being a question.
Okay, so the question was, are you just monitoring the professional websites of dental hygienists, or are you actually monitoring individual Facebook pages? So that's a great question, and we actually have a new social media interpretation guideline that hopefully you've seen that I'm going to delve into a little bit deeper. This is review of practice websites. We are not going to look at your personal stuff. That is not the intent. The intent is for practice websites. So if you have a practice and you have a website, we're going to have a look. The other thing I actually just wanted to mention before we move off of this, one of the other things we're going to do is our bylaws actually require, if you have a practice, to have your name approved by the college. We're aware that there are some practices out there that may have skipped that step. So we are going to be sort of outreaching, and you can expect some more publications around ensuring that you actually have had your name approved. And probably the reason this has happened is probably the name doesn't have dental hygiene in it. Because if you go to the Register of Companies to register a practice name and it has dental hygiene in it, they'll actually immediately send you to us because dental hygiene is a restricted title. So the Register of Companies needs to know you're authorized to use that title, and then it comes to us. But if you've adopted a name that doesn't have dental hygiene in it, the Register of Companies likely is not going to catch it, even if you divulge as a dental hygiene practice, because government is made up of humans. So again, we want to make sure that those names are appropriate and not misleading the public in any way. So, and our bylaws actually require, if you have a practice, the name actually does need to be approved. You don't have to be incorporated. Incorporation is something completely separate. That's a business choice to be made, but the name does need to be approved. So if that applies to anyone in this room, please come and talk to me. If you know of somebody that might apply to, please have them contact the college. And again, this is not about taking people's names away or making life difficult. It's meant to be a collaborative process. Hopefully it's a very just easy thing like, yep, that sounds great. We're going to put the right paperwork in place and everyone can move on. But it is important that it has to happen. So good question. Thank you, Tammy. Okay, summary of our proposal. So it's still at the proposal stage, unfortunately. This is probably familiar to all of you. We are still waiting. It is government's regulations to draft and post. I can share that the ball is gathering some momentum. So hopefully, I say it every year, but hopefully we'll have something to share soon. But the proposal remains the same. And again, we're just waiting for the decisions to be made and drafts to be posted. Also, this all probably feels familiar to you. The bylaws will change in our registration section, and we will redefine the registration categories away from full, conditional, 365 exempt. One, they're not clear to the public of what those mean. We need to be clear so the public can easily understand what your registration category is. And two, if we don't have a 365-day rule anymore, then the 365 exempt category doesn't obviously make much sense. So these are the two redefined categories. So full and conditional registrants will automatically fall into the registered dental hygienist category. That will remain at diploma entry. It will still be fully self-initiating and still can practice the full scope, except for prescribing if that comes to pass. The dental hygiene practitioner category, those in the 365 exempt category will automatically be put into that category, degree or no degree. You will automatically land in that category if you're 365 exempt currently. But to become into that category, if you're not, it's a degree level entry or equivalent. So I want to say that. It's not on my slide because it didn't fit, but we will have an equivalency process much like we do for the 365 exempt category. They'll obviously be able to practice the full scope, include prescribing, and only registrants in this category may be the primary and owner of a dental hygiene practice. I'm going to put it out there, I'm on a crusade to get away from the term independent practice and just call it dental hygiene practice. Independent, no hygienist should be independent. It is a collaborative profession. You should be working collaboratively with a number of health professionals, and this independent, I can tell you, even with government, reads like a very siloed type approach. We call it dental practice. Dentist owns a dental practice. Dental hygienist should have a dental hygiene practice. So you might see the language start shifting, but that's what we mean. I see a question. Right. So the question for those that couldn't hear is, can hygienists prescribe currently, especially kind of simple drugs that obviously can help in client care? I think some cold sore treatment was the example given. I know chlorhexidine is often one we get asked about at the college. At present, unfortunately, the answer is no. Hygienists do not have prescribing authority in BC, so that is not available, but obviously it's in our proposal. I'm not sure where that's going to land. Prescribing is a very complex area of health. It's not just a simple thing to say, yeah, dental hygienist, go ahead, here you go. We've even encountered some interesting work around figuring out which dental-related drugs are on which drug schedule, and I'm not even sure Health Canada has done a really super good job of figuring out what are on a drug schedule that actually needs a traditional prescription like you would see on a pad, and what is more of a behind-the-counter or over-the-counter type drug. And sometimes they cross depending on the concentration. So the quick answer to that is no, not at this point, but it is in the proposal. So again, back to the practitioner category, only registrants can own and operate an independent or a dental hygiene practice. I want to make it clear that all registrants can practice in a dental hygiene practice. So a registered dental hygienist can practice in a dental hygiene practice that is owned by a dental hygiene practitioner. Okay, if that makes sense. So a registered dental hygienist can still go out and practice to those that are perhaps maybe shut in their home, which is currently a difficulty because of the 365-day rule. But they have to do so as part of an owned dental hygiene practitioner or a dental practice or a health authority or what have you. So it actually obviously is breaking down barriers to care, but also ensuring those that are truly responsible for things like record keeping, billing, advertising, have a bit of a different standard. So I think I've sort of said this, where are we? We're working on it. We're providing as much support as we can to the ministry. Anything that they need, we are providing. What will this look like? When the ministry, and I want to make it very clear, the Ministry of Health are going to be the ones posting the regulations. They will be on the ministry's website. We obviously will have a link off our website. We will send you an email. But they go up for a 90-day period of public consultation. If everybody loves them and thinks they're fantastic, then there's a 60-day filing period, and away we go. We will obviously, after these have been posted, we will be posting the college we'll be posting the supporting bylaws that speak to the registration categories and any other bylaw changes that we have to make in order to support the changes in the regulations. So it's kind of going to be a dual phase, but rest assured, and this is why it's so important that you're getting our emails, this will all be shared in email with you. So let's move on to quality assurance, and now this is the part that my mouth is getting dry and my palms are starting to sweat because we're going to try the whole internet thing. QAP in 2018. So I think I kind of mentioned this last year, but it was a real big milestone. In 2018, it marked the final cohort to go into the QAP. So the old CE program is no longer. We have a few non-practicing registrants that technically are still in the CE program because they've been non-practicing for a long time. But should they ever go back to practicing, that will be removed. The 2013 cohort concluded their 5-year cycle. So the first full cohort finished their full 5 years and began their second cycle. We issued a report, so if you were here last year, we actually went through that report. It is obviously still on our website. If you haven't had a peruse through it, I highly encourage you to do so. It's quite robust. It has some really great, interesting information in it. So we published that last year in a review of the program, and we launched our new GEM. And lastly, I just wanted to mention, we actually are now, as sort of a second part of that report that was published last year, we're actually reviewing the assessor process. So we've initiated that review, so that's when a registrant is unsuccessful twice at the assessment tool and they move into the assessor process. We are now actually delving into not only looking back on the history of that and what's taken place thus far and the experience and the effectiveness of it, but also moving forward, is it, again, still accomplishing the principles of the program and our mandate of public protection. So this table gets squishier and squishier every year because I add a new column every year. This is our cohort data ever since the first full cohort started. So this year we've had 523 people in the cohort. We're kind of back down to sort of the normal numbers after last year's big high because we took a whole bunch of new people in, and then we had obviously the 2013s going through again, so we kind of doubled up, but now we're kind of back down to normal. We do obviously have the 2014 cohort now going through again, plus a few new people. So you can see the 2014 was 454, and now we're at 523. So we've obviously added some people, but that's mostly the 14 cohort. Out of those, 502 were successful on their first attempt. 21 were unsuccessful on their first attempt, which is actually 4%, which is a little bit of an uptick by about 1%. It's, it's not 5% like it was in the first year, but certainly the highest since then. So that's an interesting stat. And we certainly will be analyzing the data as well as the exit survey to see if we can figure out, is there a rationale or a reason for that? Of those 21, 8 so far were successful on their second attempt. We still have 12 pending, and then 1 thus far did not meet the standard on their second attempt and now are in the assessor phase. Question? So the question was, the practice exams for the QA2O, there are only 4, or are there new ones being added all the time? So they're added by the National Dental Hygiene Certification Board, or NDHCB. I believe new ones are being added as old QA tools are retired. I'm not sure if a new one has been added recently. I know NDHCB is in a bit of a state of transition. They are in an executive director search at the moment, and I know they've moved offices and things like that. So I don't think there's a new one, but there used to be 2, and now there's 4. So they do get added, but not every year. Okay. So after the 2018 review, one of the most consistent pieces of feedback we received from registrants was related to the usability of the OLP software. So that software, so you've gotten through what I call the wedding, so the big day of you have to take that assessment tool because everybody focuses on the day, and now you're on into the marriage. Because we all know the wedding's the fun part, and then you get the work of the marriage. So the OLP, you get into the OLP, and that's where you start having to write your learning goals and your action plan, logging activities, linking them, completing them, reflecting them. And the most consistent thing we heard was, yeah, that software's not so great, guys. It's glitchy, it's not intuitive, we're not quite sure we're doing it right, we sometimes lose things. So we heard you. Because it's no good that we have this quality assurance program, and when our registrants are trying to do the right thing in terms of taking learning and reflecting and everything, it's hard. That's not productive, that's not helpful, it's not good for the public. So we embarked on a project to upgrade the OLP. We sent out an email, so hopefully maybe some of you in this room responded, asking them, would you sit down with our IT provider and show us what you hate? Show us the challenges, show us what doesn't make sense, show us your frustrations so that we can go away and figure out how to do it better. So we had probably, I think we did about 20, and like literally our IT person sat down beside the registrant in front of a computer, and the registrant went around and clicked the old software and said, and could learn in real time. And then we've engaged those same registrants throughout the process. Once basically sort of the beta designs were done of the new stuff, same process, went and sat down without any coaching, without any pre-knowledge or instruction. Okay, try the new one. How does it work? What are you still not seeing? What is still not intuitive? So, as I said, this underpins your learning. It's important for you, but it's important for the public. It's important to do. Okay, I'm going to give you a sneak peek of the new software. I hope this works. Bear with me. If it doesn't work, I do have some screenshots that I can also show you. And also, we will have 2 laptops set up at the booth that you can come and log in and actually click around and play around yourself. I want to also say this is still at demo stage. It's not 100% final. When it is scheduled for release, probably in about May, it might look slightly different than what you see, not totally different. We're still adding and fiddling. And certainly if you come to the booth and you fiddle around and you're like, hey, that was great, but you know what I still am frustrated with? Like, tell us that, because we're going to go back and tell our developers that. Okay, so here we go. So this will be your new landing page. Okay, Ivana's up there. You can load a picture if you want to see your beautiful face when you log in. So this is your landing page. It will tell you your current registration. I'm not going to click on it because it's not loaded for the demo. You can have easy access if you need to print your registration card. There will now be a calendar. Yes, you can see there. That's where your registration is. We will now have a calendar so you can see all sort of upcoming dates. You can add to the calendar just as much as CDHPC will add to the calendar. Okay, so we can put renewal deadlines and other things there, but you can also put stuff there. Then you scroll here. This is going to give you a quick snapshot of your online learning plan. And we're going to explore more of that. If you're interested in the refundable deposit payment plan regarding your fees, there's a quick box right there. And then your message center. So if you sent us a message and you're looking for a response, it will show up there. So let's dive into the online learning plan. Oh my goodness, you have no idea how happy I was. I did not sleep last night because I was so worried about this. So I am going to take the tour first, and then I'm going to get into a little bit more specifics. Okay, so this is your snapshot. This big wheel right here is telling you how many credits you have out of 75 that you've completed. So you can see your progress at a glance. This is literally the credits, just the credit numbers. Okay? On your left, it will tell you how many of your learning plans are done. So for Ivana, she only has 2. She hasn't finished them, either one of them yet, so this box is still empty. Obviously, there's the activities. All of this I'm not going to click on it because, again, the demo site's not totally finished, but these all will be hyperlinks that you can jump to as well. Also, your modules and training, so you'll know, have you finished your jam? Once you do, this will be green. Yep. We're hoping May. We're going to get through reinstatement first, for all those that need to be reinstatement, because you'll also expect that probably over a weekend or a couple of days during the week, our site, probably the registrant site, will go down, because literally we've got to upload this beautiful thing. We've got to transport everyone's data seamlessly. Talk about also losing sleep, but the IT people who are way smarter than me say it's going to be fine. Get all your data over and then open it up to you guys, so it probably will bring the site down for a couple of days. Yeah?
Should it be 15 of 75 or 15 of 95?
75. 75 over 5 years.
What did it used to be?
75. Over 3 years.
Of course, yes, thank you.
You're probably thinking the online or the QA assessment tool. We kind of said that that's equivalent to a year's worth, so. Okay, so that's your quick snapshot. Then down, and don't forget, my screen is massive and the projector, it's been purposely made to be big. When you log into this, it is fully adaptive. So if you log on your iPhone, this is going to automatically shrink down. Some stuff will have to be moved because obviously an iPhone screen is quite small, but it will adapt. So you're not kind of trying to scroll across and scroll up and all this stuff. Or if you're on an iPad, it will adapt to that. If you're on a big monitor, it will adapt to that. So it's fully adaptive no matter which device you access this on. So that's your online learning. So the next tip. So you can see on the side here, these are where your learning plans will show up. Okay, so Ivana has 2 learning plans. She's not very far along on the first one, almost done the second one. So again, you'll have a bar to see where you're at. So have you put in your learning goal and your action plan? Have you linked some credits? And then in here is where all your logged activities are. And they show up in these nice little boxes. You obviously will be able to click on them for more information. And the other thing you can do is you can preload them. So if you've signed up for something, and you're like, hey, I just signed up, I paid, I'm now going to log in, I'm going to put in the activity, put the future date. Now, it won't count in your wheel until you actually go in and write a reflection and say you've done it. But at least you can get the information in, and then you can set a reminder that, hey, you know what, I signed up for that CDHBC webinar, and then actually go do it, and then activate it, and it will count. Okay, so that's a quick overview. I'm going to show you a little bit in more detail here. So again, there's your circle. I'm going to use this navigation because I know this works. So you click on My Plans, and you'll be able to do that from a number of different areas. We've combined goal and action plan. So you will now only need to write one thing for your goal and action plan. Okay? Because we will acknowledge that despite our ideas around this, sometimes a goal can sound like an action plan, and an action plan can sound like a goal. So now we say, do it together, but it needs to be robust. It needs to be, I want to achieve this, and this is what I'm doing. Okay, so don't think that because we've collapsed it, now you can be even more brief. It just all shows up in one spot. Okay. Now I'm going to click, I hope I'm going to click on this. There we go. So then this actually breaks it out even further. Okay, so you can edit your goal and action plan here. You can link an activity. So right now there's this activity here. So you can see, and this is why you get the little bar right over here. So the system knows that you've done your goal and action plan. Then it also knows you've done one of 2 activities that you've planned to do. So the question is, if you're in a learning plan, is there a certain number of points you need to get the green check? No. The short answer is no. You as registrants, we trust you as professionals to know how much you need to take in order to address that. Because there's also going to be context, right? So if you've got something that you do every day in practice, then maybe you want to spend a bit more time on that. If it's something you rarely see in practice or maybe almost never see in practice, maybe that's a short textbook review. So there is no prescription for any of the learning plan. It is still up to your individual judgment given the variety of factors at play. Now I know there was a question in the back. Do you want to come quickly to the mic and share that?
I was just wondering, the previous data that you're going to transfer over, will our goal and action plan be combined? Because some of the information might sound repetitive now because it's quite similar, right?
Right, so it's a very good question. It's one where we're obviously working with our staff and the developers. So the short answer is yes, those 2 fields will automatically get combined into now one field. The also short answer is if you are selected for audit after this transition happens and the information looks repetitive, we are going to understand why, and we're not going to ding you for it. Yep. I'm sorry, I'm going to need you to go to the mic. Thanks so much.
I never really understood how you determine how many learning plans after you write that QAP.
Okay.
Like, it doesn't seem like it's reflective on how many you got wrong I've seen, and I've never really understood how that comes together.
Sure. So to try to put it briefly without visual, basically every question on the QA assessment tool has been coded. And so you can see these codes that pop up, right? And you can see the codes that show up but one question might have a number of codes attached to it. And so we have a psychometrician that works with us, and it is a bit complex, but as we've always said, what you end up in your learning plan is a measure against yourself. It doesn't necessarily like you got 10 questions wrong and they had 5 codes attached to it, so you get 5. That's not how the system works. If you get a few questions wrong and they all have the same codes, but you get one question wrong and it has a different code, the system is going to say, okay, we know that this registrant is struggling with C1. We're going to generate that as the learning plan. Yes, the registrant maybe got A1 wrong once, but they got it right 4 other times. We're not going to be as concerned about that. So if you think about sort of those basically 5 big areas, yes, you could get 1 wrong, but if you get the rest right in that area, but then you get 3 out of 5 wrong in another area, that's how your learning plan gets generated. So it's a measure against yourself. It's not just a simple, you get it wrong, therefore you get the learning plan, because just because you get 1 question wrong doesn't necessarily say that maybe you need to brush up in that area. There could be other reasons. So I hope that sort of answers your question. It is very complex. That's why we have a very, very smart individual with multiple degrees in math to help us with this. But it isn't just a link between what you got wrong and what shows up. Okay? And it gets a little even more complicated when you do super well. So we do have registrants who get very high scores, and the system has a little bit of a harder time because they did so well, but the system still requires at least 1 area of learning in their directed plan. Okay, so the question was, they feel like the areas are too general and it's really hard to address what is maybe being meant to be addressed, or would it not be better if things were a bit more specific? I absolutely hear what you're saying. However, you are still a professional, and we still trust you as a professional, and we actually are meant to give you an area, and you still should, I don't want people, and the whole idea of the assessment tool is not go learn what that question was about that you got wrong. That's not the intent. Okay? I don't want people to think, well, if I got the question wrong, then that's what I need to learn about. That's why we give you a content area for you to further explore it and say, you know what, actually I'm not really familiar about this aspect of head, neck, and oral and dental anatomy. We don't necessarily expect you to go and take a semester on head, neck, and oral and dental anatomy unless you're like, yeah, I actually am totally horrible at that and I need lots. That's not sort of the expectation. So I know that there is this drive to just please tell me what you want me to do. We're going to stop short of that because we still want you to have the freedom to explore these areas in a way that actually applies to your practice and the kind of care you provide. Okay, so I'm going to keep clicking through this. So this is your learning plan. You can see this is where you click to link an activity. Okay, and when you click that link, this little pop-up box will come up. Right now there's only 2 activities in here. But once you start amassing activities, you can actually sort by when they ended. So your most recent will be at the top. Or you can sort by, when they ended or recently added, so your most recent will be at the top, or even alphabetically. So you can sort them in different ways once you start getting a lot. We also, this isn't here yet, but we actually are still going to add a link in here to add an activity. But to do that, we'll just go for the purposes of this demonstration. Oh, don't kick me out now. Oh, yes, thank you very much. So this is where all your activities are. And you click this button up here. This is add an activity. You're going to actually now have a drop-down. And this is just a preliminary list. This is going to change, and it's going to mirror the CE guide. So you're actually going to have a drop-down that you need to categorize your activities, because some of you probably will know that there are some certain types of activities you can only do so much for. Okay, like some boxes only, you can only have a maximum of say 20 credits, so this system will assist with that. It'll get you the credit you assign, your location, your start date, you save it, and then you can go back to My Activities. It will actually ask you if you want to link it somewhere. Okay. And then here we'll give you more information about your modules, and when this goes live, you can actually directly click from here to access the gem or be sent to the Sanyas training, and any other modules that might be developed in the future will be here. Okay, and then lastly, the QA assessment results. This is where a snapshot will be in terms of your results from your tool. Okay, and then there's going to be lots of helps and resources. Also, you'll see here at the top, I'm not going to click on it because it's not part of the demo, but you can also toggle back to your previous cycle if you needed to check into, like, what did I do a couple of years ago? Have I already done this? You'll be able to go, whereas I know now there's a lot of challenge in going back to see your old one. So that's going to be there. So like I said, I think, we're not going to show this again, but I hope this is a very much more visual way of being able to track your quality assurance program and your online learning. And it will really give you a snapshot. And like I said, there's going to be lots of hyperlinks. We're going to do some educational videos. And yes, we are transporting over all the information that is currently in the old software to the new one. That being said, if you want to hold off on adding anything new, I rarely recommend this because I'm all about get it in there, don't wait till the last minute. But if you wanted to hold off until May when the new system comes on, that may not be a bad choice. And it also then gives you maybe a stack of things so that when the new system comes online, you can actually sit down and spend some time with it and get familiar with it and get comfortable with it. I saw a hand, yeah. So if you are in the first year of your 5-year QA cycle, you need to take your first attempt by February 28th. It's a condition to renew. Taking the attempt is a condition to renew. I want to make sure everyone's clear about that. You don't necessarily have to pass your first attempt in order to renew, but you do have to take your first attempt in order to renew. And then you have 60 days if you are unsuccessful on that first attempt to take your second attempt. Okay? All right. Great questions. So I hope that you'll have a chance and come by the booth to click around this. I hope that this is going to facilitate learning and make your life a little bit easier. We certainly are welcoming any and all feedback on this, but we are quite excited, and I think this is going to be head and shoulders above our first offering to you. Don't forget, we did build the old software in 2010. It's 9 years ago. We thought we were actually being pretty cutting edge at the time. It just goes to show how quickly technology and software changes. I see another hand. Good question. Is there going to be an app version? We have not invested the money for an app yet. We are pondering that. However, like I said, this is fully scalable. So when you open it on your phone, I wish I had the technological know-how to actually open this on my phone and show you on the screen, but it actually does shrink down. Obviously, the boxes move around because your phone is this big and that screen's that big, but it is very phone compatible if that's how you choose to use it. As a segue, we have some new interpretation guidelines that have come out. Social media, so this kind of links back to Tammy's question and about talking about the review and the expectation around social media and sort of just digital media in general for registrants. So we have published a new social media guideline. I hope everyone in this room has seen it. If you haven't, please go to our website and have a read, but I'll summarize it here for you, obviously. So basically, the expectations of professional and ethical conduct are the same whether dental hygienists are interacting in person, online, or through social media. I mean, I think that's a pretty basic statement. However, it's really important that the casualness of social media does not translate into your professional behavior. So we also state that dental hygienists should refrain from establishing personal connections with clients online. Now, I know that maybe some of your clients are your friends, some of your colleagues are your friends, but really what we're saying is if you want a professional dental hygiene Facebook page or Instagram account or Snapchat, I'm not sure how that's applicable to dental hygiene, but I'm an old person, I use Facebook. My kids tell me all the time that nobody's on Facebook anymore. I am. That you create one that is for your professional purposes as a dental hygienist, and you keep your personal one separate for personal purposes, and that you don't allow the two to cross over. Okay, there's nothing wrong with having a professional Facebook page. We know that we live in a digital age. We know that most people get their news and their information, for better or for worse, through Facebook and other social media platforms. So obviously there is nothing wrong with that, but we highly recommend keeping your personal account separate from your professional account. And also, make sure you are being accurate. I know I'm probably speaking to the converted here. You're all here learning and obviously being professional, but make sure your credentials are reflected accurately. And again, maintain those appropriate boundaries. It can be really tempting, and we in this media age, we sometimes don't even think twice about being very casual, especially on social media. But you have to remember, when you're speaking as a registrant, as a professional, it is different, and you are being held to a slightly different standard. Okay? You shouldn't be providing clinical advice directly to a client through a social media platform. Okay? The principles of confidentiality are so vitally important. I would even hold off from providing direct client advice, even through the private messaging aspects of those social media platforms, because you just don't know. We actually had a complaint, and now obviously this was a phone message, but the principles are still the same. We had a complaint a few years ago of a registrant who was trying to reach a client, and they were playing a lot of telephone tag and couldn't get a hold of each other, and so the registrant finally kind of resorted to leaving a big long message on the client's voicemail about some aspect of treatment or care. And the client actually lodged a complaint because they said, you know what? There was stuff in that voicemail that maybe I actually hadn't quite shared with my family, and what if one of my family members had checked the voicemail? Okay? Same sort of thing with social media. Yes, you think that people are password protected and not sharing their phones and whatever, but what happens if someone else picks up the phone and all of a sudden, bing, that notification comes off from your dental hygienist that's sharing, hey, I got back your test on, or hey, have you made a decision on? And the person holding the other person's phone goes, what's that all about? Okay, so be very, very, very careful. It can seem innocent, it can seem not like a big deal, but the best way to communicate with your clients is either obviously face-to-face or when you are assured that that's them on the phone. So like I said, it's usually not intentional, okay? I think, most of our registrants are just trying to help, trying to make things easier for their clients, trying to get them important information. But again, you have to remember about privacy, and social media is fraught with privacy issues. Again, as we spoke about before with the recent media stories about Facebook posts around anti-vaccinations and things like that, please ensure that the content aligns with the dental hygiene scope of practice. You shouldn't be speaking about things that are not within scope. Practice standards code of ethics reflects information that is evidence-based or for legitimate sources. So again, if you have a professional page and you're wanting to share some piece of news or share some article, make sure they're coming from a legitimate source and that it's evidence-based and we're not sharing things that are not. Okay, so just be cautious with that, because again, we talk about that trust, right? You are a professional, and if you post something, the people who trust you as a professional, they may not critically think about it as much as they should, because hey, you know what? Heather Bigger posted that, so it must be true. So let's make sure we're careful about that. Any questions before I move on to fitness to practice about that social media guide? So please don't let me scare you away from having a professional Facebook page. It's possible. It's very possible to do it well. Lots of registrants have great pages. It's a very effective tool. It's just these are the things that you want to keep in mind when you do. Okay, fitness to practice. So this is actually brand spanking new. We posted it on Tuesday. We sent an email out. Hopefully those emails are coming now. So again, in the ever-changing thing, we felt it was important to actually have a guideline related to fitness to practice. And what is that? And how do you assess that? And what should you do about that? So fitness to practice refers to a measure of health and wellness as it relates to your ability to work as a professional. So are you both physically and mentally well enough to provide safe, competent, current, ethical care? So, for example, you must be able to meet the physical demands of your role. Okay, so it's not just in clinical practice. There's a wide variety of the ways dental hygienists practice. So can you meet those physical demands of practice? You know, obviously for clinical practitioners, are your ergonomics correct when you're sitting down? For perhaps a public health hygienist who is maybe having to go to multiple places, stand on their feet a long time, you know, can they do those sort of things? Can you think critically? Okay, or is there something impairing your ability to really be able to critically think? And exercise appropriate judgment. Okay, can you think critically? Can you exercise appropriate judgment? Can you sustain concentration and focus while practicing? Okay, can you communicate effectively? And can you ultimately perform the skills that you need to in the practice setting, either the fine motor skills, the use of instruments, can you perform calculations, those sort of things? Or is there a physical or mental impairment that is getting in the way of that? So all sorts of things may or may not get in the way of that, but examples obviously are physical injuries, especially some of those repetitive injuries that so many registrants I know struggle with, acute or chronic medical conditions, physical disabilities, mental health and mental illness, substance abuse, effects from medication regimes, and this actually where, we actually had a very robust discussion at the board, which is great, about where now the legalization of marijuana would fall. Okay, it's now a legal substance. And I think the quick answer is, obviously, you would not show up to work intoxicated. Therefore, just because marijuana is legal, you should not show up to work high either. But then, is that a substance abuse issue? Or what if it's medical marijuana? What if it's prescribed for a condition? Well, that's no different than any other narcotic or any other medication that's been prescribed for a condition, and if it has side effects that impair the ability to practice. Okay? So we know every situation is unique and different. I don't want anyone to go away thinking, oh my gosh, if I have one of these things, or I know someone who has one of these things, oh my goodness, the college is going to say I'm not fit to practice. Absolutely not so. We just want registrants to be aware, to always be assessing, always being reflective, taking their responsibility to know their own limitations and know how to make these judgment calls. Because there's a lot of, as I said in inquiry, lots of shades of gray. Right? There's no black and white here. There's interplay between obviously the actual condition and the type of work that's being done. Can there be accommodations made to facilitate the work and accommodate those conditions? Every situation is unique. What we are saying is don't just forge on ahead. Or if you know of a registrant who's trying to forge on ahead, because at the end of the day, we don't want anyone to end up in a bad spot and harm to occur. So again, routinely assess your health and how it impacts your ability to provide care. If a condition or circumstances impair their ability to provide safe and competent care, you should refrain from practice. We do have that duty to report. And I know it's uncomfortable and crunchy, but I always say, you're a professional, and if you would not send the person you love most in the world to see that practitioner, then you shouldn't be standing idly by and letting other members of the public receive care from them either. And I know that's a really simple thing to say when the rubber hits the road and it's complex, but that is what the college is here for, and we can support that. But you do have a duty to report, and we do ask that happens. And again, As long as registrants are working with us, we are willing to work with them, and our goal is always to get back to safe care and provide care. I saw a hand go up. Yep. So the question was, is the college going to be sort of moving towards requiring a medical exam for licensure, like I say a commercial license, or is it more of a reminder? At this point, it's more of a reminder. We're not contemplating requiring all registrants to undergo some sort of fitness exam, but certainly often when we receive concerns or complaints, we do actually send specific registrants for a fitness to practice assessment, not because we're looking to take their license away, but we actually want a health professional to assess their fitness and make recommendations on how they can actually practice safely and what they need to do to actually enhance their ability to practice safely. It's actually a way to support the registrant in practice versus trying to penalize the registrant. And again, I talked at the beginning about where us as humans plus our regulatory responsibility really intersect. I got a really difficult phone call a few weeks, well, maybe just last week, I guess we're just a week into a reinstatement, that a registrant forgot to renew because she had a small child who had some medical issues and was in and out of the hospital, and could I not just waive the reinstatement fee? Could I not just do a few other things, because life was really stressful and hard? Yeah, like as a mother, it broke my heart. It is stressful and hard. But as a regulator, the first thing I thought was, if life is stressful and hard that you can't remember to meet your regulatory obligations, is now the right time to be practicing, which could add to the level of stress and hard. I respect that. So this is where these things interact and where we are trying to be supportive, but at the same time, we have to make sure that someone isn't practicing when they really shouldn't be, because life does happen, we get that. But the responsible thing to do is maybe to take a step back and pause, or do the work that's necessary to go back to practice in a safe way. So speaking of inquiry, that was a good segue. It's like I planned it or something. So I'm just going to go through, this is going to kind of wrap up our presentation. We'll touch on cultural safety at the end. But I thought I would give you a quick overview of what 2018 looked like in inquiry land. So we received 11 new complaints, which for 4,000 registrants, pretty good actually. That's a pretty low number. 2 were carried over from 2017. How those broke down is we've carried 4 cases over to this year, so 4 cases were not complete by the end of the year. 2 were summarily dismissed. 1 was due to a pure employment issue. It was an employment dispute, and as I said before, we don't get involved in that. And 1 actually was a retired dental hygienist, and basically confirmed that dental hygienist plans to remain retired forevermore, and we didn't feel it was necessary to proceed with the investigation. 1 case, no further action was taken. 1 case, a consent order just required monitoring. So this case was actually, that 1 case was resolved in the year prior, but the consent order required some chart audits that happened last year. And then 5 cases were resolved by consent agreement, 2 requiring public notification. So I'm going to go through those 5 cases. I'm sorry if it sounds a bit repetitive and a bit dry, but I think it's really important to show how these cases evolve. Because I know inquiry seems scary and challenging and awful, and I want to be very transparent on how the process evolves so you can see that it is actually very fair and transparent. So case 1804, so this was actually the case that was summarily, or no further action was taken, but I felt it was important for you to see what the case was and why we didn't take any action. Because sometimes I think people think that, oh my gosh, there's been a complaint made to the college and now the college is going to throw the book at me. No, we do dismiss complaints. We do take no further action after an investigation. So in this particular case, the complainant alleged there was unethical conduct, basically saying that the registrant advised they were a dentist as well as a dental hygienist. We obviously initiated the investigation because obviously holding yourself out to be a dentist without being registered with CDSBC is not okay. So we initiated an investigation. We hired or appointed an inspector to assist with that investigation. The registrant was then notified of the investigation and requested to provide a response to the complaint. The registrant's written response to the investigation did provide a written response, and a copy was provided to the complainant. So you can see The registrant has an opportunity to respond, but then that response is also transparent back to the complainant, and the complainant has ability to comment. The registrant did acknowledge in the response that when they were asked if they were a dental hygienist or a dentist, they responded that both. Okay. The registrant further explained they are an internationally trained dentist, but not licensed dentist in Canada. So they are a trained dentist, and this is lovely regulation, right? You can't, the use of dentist in BC is a restricted title. You can't hold yourself out to be a dentist, but if you are an international dentist, you don't have to hide that fact. You can say that you are an international dentist, but the important thing is to be clear about it. The registrant stated they didn't introduce themselves as a dentist, and clearly their name tag has registered dental hygienist on it. After this information was provided to the complainant had basically told us they reviewed that response and basically had no further comments to add. And they also advised that they were satisfied that we had looked into it, the registrant was now aware, and they didn't feel like any further action was needed, that they were satisfied. So the committee basically still has to make a disposition. So the Act actually requires us, no matter what, to investigate all complaints in writing, that are made in writing, and no matter what, we need to what they call make a disposition, which is basically we need to make a decision and close the case, and it can range from no further action all the way through to a citation for discipline. So in this case, that there was insufficient basis for taking any sort of regulatory action against the registrant. And as I said, that it's not inappropriate that if they had held a different qualification in another jurisdiction, that they can't speak about those qualifications, but they should be very clear that they're not licensed in this jurisdiction in BC to do those activities. So a caution was given to the registrant just to make sure in the future, make sure you're clear about that, but no further action was taken. Okay? So that was that case. So this is 1801. This one was a bit of a tricky one and a very interesting one, and I'll be interested in if anyone has any questions about this one. So we were made aware at the college that a registrant may have engaged in unethical and unprofessional behavior by submitting a false prescription and may have conducted themselves outside the scope of practice of dental hygiene. So as we talked about, dental hygienists currently cannot prescribe. An inspector, again, was appointed. Registrant was notified and requested for a response. The registrant did respond saying they were unaware that they were not allowed to prescribe Paradex and apologized for the misunderstanding. The registrant's employer actually also contacted us directly and apologized for this occurrence, and it was a one-time event. I guess the particular company, I guess along with the Paradex, also sends kind of a set of prescription pads. It's kind of one of these rip go, and then maybe the dentist had maybe pre-signed or maybe said, oh, you just put your signature on it and give it. Not okay. Please don't do that. I know it seems not practical maybe, and which is why we're working on that prescribing piece. But at the end of the day, a hygienist cannot sign a script of any sort, even if it's pre-printed. Okay? So basically, the college received the inspector's report, and a copy of that report was sent to the registrant for comment. So you can see again how the process is very clear. The registrant has multiple opportunities to respond. We received a written response from the registrant confirming the report was an accurate reflection of what occurred. So the committee took all this information and was concerned that they did engage in conduct that was outside the scope of practice, and that this would be the appropriate case to seek a consent order. So a consent order you maybe or may not be familiar with, but basically it's a statement of facts and then a set of requirements that the registrant commits to and undertakes to do. So basically, on the surface, when we first kind of got this complaint, we're like, oh boy, a hygienist is out there prescribing stuff, and there's been other hygienists who've tried to do that, and it hasn't ended so well. And so we were thinking, this might be discipline, this is a pretty serious matter. But again, shades of gray. As you start uncovering and digging and being transparent, it really did feel like kind of an honest error. They acknowledged the error. They were cooperative through the investigation. They were open with us. And so the committee felt that given those things, that because they acknowledged and apologized, and they acknowledged that they now know, clearly it's outside of scope, that a consent order was appropriate, that it didn't need to be elevated to discipline. So under the terms of the consent order, the registrant obviously commits not to do that again, and undertook to write a reflective essay for approval that basically demonstrates their understanding of scope of practice and the standards of practice and sort of where those limits are. Let's go through the last little bit of investigation inquiry here. So basically, we actually had 2 cases where registrant practiced without a license. This one was basically only for the period of 2 days, but it's still, again, March 1st and 2nd. If you forgot to renew on February 28th, please don't go to practice on March 1st or 2nd or after that until you've been reinstated. It is unauthorized practice. It is taken seriously every single time. Basically, the motion was initiated, the registrant was asked for a response, the registrant provided an email response acknowledging their failure to renew their registration and that they were unaware that they were not allowed to practice on March 1st, despite not renewing, which was troubling. And the registrant then further acknowledged that they received the reminder emails and confirmed they were aware of the renewal deadline, but then stated they were overloaded with responsibilities and obligations, which resulted in their failure to renew before the deadline. So again, I talked about earlier, again, I appreciate life happens, but I can tell you at inquiry, these type of excuses don't usually go very far. Okay, if that life is that busy that you can't remember your renewal deadline, then you need to actually be self-reflective about how that's just impacting practice overall. So after that, the committee determined that a consent order should be signed in this case, basically not to repeat the conduct of engaging in unauthorized practice, thoroughly review the requirements set out in our bylaws, successfully complete the GEM so you are familiar with the jurisprudence, complete the BCDHA module F1, Ethics and Jurisprudence, ensure that all future communication with the college are conducted in a respectful and professional manner. So I didn't include it in the bullet point above, but unfortunately, at least at the beginning of this case, the registrant wasn't particularly responsive, and when they were, it wasn't the most professional language. So if you ever find yourself in an inquiry, there are supports at the association, but also my tip to you, be responsive, be respectful, be professional. It will make the process go a lot smoother, and the result at the end probably be better than burying your head in the sand or resorting to unprofessional language and communications. So then we had a second case, basically the same thing. This one actually was for a period of 2 months. Okay, so yeah, 2 days, not great, still bad, don't do that. 2 months, very obviously even more concerning. And also the other thing that's very concerning is not only is it illegal practice, but during this time, the registrant's not insured either. So if something happened, the public, the clients, wouldn't have any financial recourse either, and or obviously it could mean financial disaster for the registrant as well. So again, the registrant was notified of the investigation, provided to provide a response. The registrant in this case did acknowledge their failure. However, they did state that they had believed they had renewed on February 27th. They thought it was done. And then once we obviously contacted them and notified them, we obviously looked in our back end. We could see they did log in on February 27th, but didn't actually submit payment. Didn't get to the end. Didn't get the confirmation screen that came up, didn't get the confirmation email, and quite honestly, didn't get the card in the mail. We were still mailing cards at this point. This was my only hesitation to stop mailing cards, that's kind of the ultimate fail-safe. If you don't get your card in the mail, phone us to find out why, because maybe it didn't go through like you thought it did, in like this case. So they did acknowledge they're bad, and they were completely apologetic, completely contrite. They were horrified. They wouldn't have gone to practice if they had known. They didn't do it deliberately. However, they did have an existing voluntary undertaking, which many years ago, and this was in 2013, we did a lot of voluntary undertakings. They're different than a consent order. They're not as legally robust as a consent order, which they would not repeat the conduct of practicing dental hygiene without registration. So unfortunately, this person had done this once before. Now, this particular document, usually if you violate a consent order, that's grounds for discipline. This type of document, not as much. So interestingly, two similar cases, one 2 days, one 2 months. One had no idea that they weren't allowed to practice. One did, and it was conceivably an oopsie that they didn't submit payment and were unknowingly practicing without a license. So you can see, on the surface, same issue. You dive deeper, it's slightly different. So again, after this, the committee determined another consent order was required. Again, don't do that again. Review the requirements in the bylaws, complete the gem, complete the module, and then consent to a reprimand. And I know that maybe for those of you in the audience are thinking, well, that seems a little light. In the regulatory world, a reprimand is very, very significant. To have a reprimand on your file, that is information that is shared. Should you, say, leave to go to another jurisdiction, we would share a reprimand. It is shared for other purposes as well, so it is a fairly significant document. So you can see the slightly different approach. A similar outcome. This one got an extra thing at the end because, again, it had happened before and it was a longer period of time. But this one did it supposedly unknowingly, where the other one just felt that they didn't know they couldn't go if they didn't renew. So I don't know which one is worse. Maybe a bit of a toss-up. So we did also publish 2 consent orders. 2 public notices were made last year. The first one was regarding Mandeep Sahota. In this particular case, a complaint was received from a dentist, actually. And the complaint, basically, it was quite robust. The file on this is quite long. I've really, really summarized it because of time and not having too many words. But basically, the registrant failed to adequately assess the client needs by failing to perform periodontal probing in accordance with the practice standards, failed to complete proper charting, and basically just failed to demonstrate adequate skills in periodontal probing. And that's a really abbreviated version. So basically, after a very robust investigation, there was an inspector appointed, a robust investigation. Again, both the complainant and the registrant had copies of each other's responses, had copies of the inspector's report. I left that out of the slide because the result is quite long, but that all did take place. So these were basically the requirements put on in terms of the consent order that Mandeep agreed to. So first, right now, the registrant has a non-practicing license, but to get a practicing license back, the registrant must complete at her cost an approved dental hygiene retraining program and provide evidence that it was successfully done. Successfully complete any outstanding requirements by the QA committee as part of her directed learning plan. Should she do those 2 things and retain a practicing license, she's to practice under direct supervision of a full registrant for the college for a period of 1 year. That registrant and a plan has to be approved by the committee before starting practice. And then quarterly supervision reports must be submitted to the committee outlining progress, any areas of deficiency or concern, and steps taken to address those areas. The registrant is solely responsible for those costs as well. After that time, an approved mentorship must be established. So it's not supervision, it's mentorship. So there is a difference. They must communicate between the mentor and the registrant every basically 2 weeks for a period of not less than 3 years. And the mentorship, again, will also be at any cost, at the registrant's cost if there is any. Lastly, that the registrant will cooperate with any random site visits and chart audits for a period of 3 years, and again, the registrant is responsible for those costs. And then if there's any remedial action necessary after those areas of, if any areas of deficiency are identified, that the registrant will have to address them. So it's quite robust. This is one of the few, ironically, the few cases that is actually related to clinical practice and technical skill. We don't get those a ton, but this one was, I know I maybe made it sound a little light at the beginning, but there was obviously significant concerns regarding competency in being able to provide basically the full process of care. Okay, and then lastly, there was a section 37.1 order for Lisanne Monroe Lamar that was as a result of a citation for discipline. So a citation for discipline was issued last year for a discipline hearing. The only way to avert a discipline hearing once a citation is issued is to enter into a Section 37.1 consent order, and that's what took place here. So the reason that the citation was issued is it was alleged, and of course these things were never proven because the hearing never took place, but that the registrant provided treatment outside of scope of practice, failed to follow practice standards by allowing client to opt out of accepting a referral, and engage in unprofessional conduct with the client. So the reason the committee did accept this instead of a discipline hearing is that they had no concerns regarding the registrant's competency as a dental hygienist, and that since the incident that had taken place had taken further work regarding her ISD treatments and her referral process. We acknowledge that it was a very challenging situation with a child who presented with an abscess following an IST placement, and given the small nature of the community, there was not ready access to medical care, and I think it was actually over a long weekend, and that the registrant truly believed that she was doing the right thing in the interest of the child. Now again, as I said, we can't compromise scope of practice, we can't compromise our standards of practice just because we think it's the right thing to do or the best thing to do. That is why it's so important to have those collaborative relationships and be able to find the right practitioner to provide the care. You can't just leap in because you feel like maybe they have nowhere else to go. You have to be cautious with that. Under the terms of the consent agreement, the registrant undertakes to ensure all treatments that she provides are within the scope of practice, that she follows our interpretation guidelines for referrals, and if she can't send a referral directly to a dentist, that it is acceptable to provide the referral form directly to the client for the client to follow up on, as long as you are clear that to the client that why you're providing them that and why it's important that they do so. We acknowledge that you can't obviously force anybody to follow up on a referral if they choose not to. Okay, we're not expecting our dental hygienists to be dragging people to dentists or other professionals, but you do have a duty not only to provide the referral, provide it in a clear way, provide where they can go for it, and make sure they understand why you're providing it, why it's important to go, and any risks associated with not going. Okay? Further terms of the consent agreement was a letter of apology expressing regret regarding what happened, and then also the registrant has engaged in further dialogue with the college on topics of IST, the referral process, and guidelines related to emergency care. So the question is, can a dental hygiene practitioner who has a practice hire a registered dental hygienist? Yes, 100% absolutely. Yeah. And they can practice the full scope. They don't need, assuming this all takes place, they don't need the exam and all of that. So, anything else? No? Well, thank you so much. It's always a pleasure. Please come stop by our booth, and I hope everyone has a fantastic conference. Thanks, everybody.